Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to TSCC Radio Live at 1:30 every Saturday afternoon again. I'm Hu Jing. Yeah, last week I have invited Brother Jerome come to our program to share about his personal experience in badminton. Yeah, and this week I'm going to interview him about more techniques in how to play the badminton. Yeah. For some, we may have some new friends have joined today. So maybe before we start, you want to introduce yourself again?
Yeah, sure. So from last week, I shared that currently I'm working in the central bank as a portfolio manager, managing reserves of Singapore. And I have been a lover of sports, and it's been my passion from young to play sports. So I'm happy to be here to be able to share more about my first love, badminton.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I know badminton is like a fast-paced racket game. I think with the aim to put the shuttlecock to the opponent's net, right? The other side of the net.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it sounds easy, and but I think if you really want to play like a professional, it's really not easy. Yeah. I remember I learned play badminton when I was very young, but that's really stopped at the beginner's level, and I haven't been playing badminton for the past 10 over years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, after look at last week's sharing, I really encouraged me to pick up badminton again. So this week I would like to ask you, for beginners like me,
sure,
if I want to pick up this badminton as a sports activity, where do I start? There's so many like a racket. I mean, all this racket in the market. There's so many types. I just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Maybe you can give me some tips.
Sure. Yes, I encourage strongly for those who have not picked up badminton to learn badminton, because I think it's good training, and it's a sport that you can play from a young age till you're very old. So to your question, when it comes to choosing a badminton racket, badminton is indeed a sport. It's the fastest swinging racket sport. So when it comes to choosing a racket, there are many brands. Some common places you can go would be like Queensway, where you can see a lot of badminton shops there.
Right.
So for a badminton racket, there are three parts to the racket. There is actually the head, which is this part.
Okay.
And then there's the body, this part.
The stick.
Yes, the stick. And then the grip on where I'm holding it now.
Okay.
So their brands range from Yonex, Li-Ning, Apex, Protect, Ashaway, couple of different brands. And when it comes to the head, I think what you want to look out for would be the weight. So when you go to a shop, you can pick up the rackets there and try to feel it, but you can't play it. So I think the best way of trying to pick up a racket is actually to borrow your friend's racket if they have, or you can borrow mine. So the best way is to really try to play with that racket, and then even for a same model racket, you can actually customize the different weights on the head and also the grip.
Oh.
Yeah, so actually the top part would be inclusive of the strings.
Yeah, I can
So the
see that.
strings here, you have different various types. There are some of the competition strings versus the training strings. So the main difference would be how thick the strings are. So normally, if you want to be more accurate, more sharp in your shots, you try to choose a thinner string. But the issue with thinner strings is that they burst or they break very easily.
I see.
Yeah, so the cost of replacing the strings are nowadays quite expensive. It can range from $15 to $20, so very expensive.
So a few rounds I can buy a
Yeah,
racket.
exactly, right? So a racket now is only like about $100, and then your strings cost about $15. The color of the strings don't quite matter. You can just choose based on what color you like. So there's the two different ones here. So for attacking player, you might want to add weight to the head so that you can smash harder. So if you want to be able to smash harder, you want it to be heavier at the top. But it'll be more difficult to defend, because if it's heavier, when you return shots, it's going to be harder to get into position and it's heavier at the top.
I see.
Yeah. The tension of the strings, it can range from 22 to all the way to 30. It really depends on how much your racket can take. Some rackets will not be able to take so high tension. So if you put, say, too high, above 26, the racket will go out of shape. Yeah. So it's best to, when you first buy the racket, you can ask the shop owner, what's the highest tension you can take. And not necessarily like a higher tension is better. I would say for beginner to intermediate, the recommendation is maybe tie around 22 to 24. They call it LBS, I think, the tension. But if you are more of a pro, then you can make it higher. But because if it's higher, it tends to be harder to hit the shutter. It requires more of the wrist technique.
I see.
Yeah. And then you come down to the body. Generally, I choose the body based on the color that I like. So, so a lot of times, visually, right? There are really nowadays a lot of colorful rackets, right? So you really choose the color that you like. There are many materials, mainly either graphite or carbon. And when it comes to the wrist part, there's two different grips here. So one is the towel grip and one's the rubber grip. So it really depends on your feel. But generally, if you are just picking out, I recommend the rubber grip because it's less slippery.
I see. Okay. About the price, does that mean?
Yeah, so the price, it ranges, say a decent racket will be about $80 to really good expensive rackets, maybe 150 to 200. The more expensive ones tend to be like Li-Ning, Yonex. So this racket here is about 150. Yeah, I mean, depending on your budget, and if you're just starting out, I would just say 100, 110 range would be quite good enough. Yeah.
Okay. So now come to the shuttlecock.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I think I've ever seen different materials about the shuttlecock. Some are plastic, some are feather. Maybe.
Yeah, you're right. So I think most shuttlecocks here, they are made of goose feathers. You have the plastic ones also. The plastic ones are more durable, but they are very heavy. So it's never ever used in competitions or trainings. But it's maybe when you're a kid. When I was a kid, I used plastic one because we don't want to spend so much money on the shuttlecocks, right?
No wonder I remember I played the plastic one.
So nowadays, shuttlecocks are really expensive. One shuttlecock can be about $30, and it only can last maybe one game. So it's really expensive these days. The differences in shuttlecocks, as I mentioned with the rackets, different brands also come out with different shuttlecocks. You have Yonex, you have Li-Ning, you have Protect, various different brands. I generally like the Li-Ning and Yonex because of the feel of the shutter. By that I mean how fast the shutter can fly. So on the shutter there's also different numbers. So the numbers also represent how fast the shutter can fly.
AS10.
Yeah, so I think I can't recall whether the smaller number means faster or not, but generally the number would represent how fast the shutter can fly. So generally, if you are just picking out a beginner intermediate player, you don't want the shutter to be too fast. If not, it's really, really difficult to catch.
Otherwise it would be pick up the shutter all the time.
That's right, right, yeah.
But if you want to, let's say you only have this shutter, but you want to change the speed, what are the...
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are some ways. So one way to make it slower would be to... You want the shutters to open up so that it's more air resistant. So actually you can try to dig here and try to make it wider, right? And then if the shutter is too slow, you want it faster, then I guess you can just squeeze the shutter.
Just make it smaller, so less resistance.
But you gotta be careful because the feathers are actually very fragile, right? Yeah.
I see. Okay, that's great. Next, come to the shoes. Can I just wear the normal sports shoes?
I wouldn't recommend normal sports shoes. I'm not wearing a badminton shoe right now. But what's the difference between a normal running shoe and a court shoe would be the sole. So generally, the sole of a badminton shoe or court shoes are those that have better rubber grip and allows you to change your direction of your leg much faster.
Because you have to keep it running.
Yes. So you go back and forth and you always change direction, right? So a court shoes with more grip is better. And one of the trick, if your shoes are quite old already, when you have quite quite old and dusty, right? One way to have better grip is to actually put water at the side of your court and then just rub it
Oh, really?
on the floor. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you actually get rid of the dirt on the sole, so that you can actually have better grip.
I see. Wow, interesting.
But not too much water, just a little bit.
Otherwise, you slip.
Yes,
become
correct.
slippery.
Yep. Oh yes, and also the shoes. You have also various ranges, right? It ranges from $50 to all the way to $150. The main differences are those with power cushion. So those with power cushion are those with very thicker comfort in the sole, so it allows you to jump even higher. Yeah, so I recommend you to get those power cushions because
so
those
like
are shoes that can really allow you to jump and reach the shuttle faster.
Okay, thank you for the tips. And I also know that for badminton you can play a single or double. What the difference in both?
I think the main difference, singles is just one person. The court lines are the smaller ones, the inner lines. Doubles would be the outer lines, and you'll be playing with two people. So the main difference, of course, singles you have to run a lot more, right?
Yeah.
So depending on whether you prefer running around the court or actually doubles is also is equally challenging and fun.
Right.
That requires a lot more partnership with your teammate, your partner, right? Whether when the shuttle is high in the air, both of you should be split between each on the half court to be able to defend the smash that's coming.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot more strategies when it comes to playing doubles. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Now come to the technical part. I know there's many different ways, and maybe you can teach me what are different techniques.
Yeah. So there are altogether 7 kind of strokes. In the court, there are actually 6 main points in the court. So at the 2 back lines, 2 in the middle, and actually 2 at the front. So the 6 main points for you to cover. So at the back, right, there are 3 kinds of shots. You want to do a lob, means from the back, you want to hit to the back of your opponent's high ball. So you want to be using mostly your wrist. So the position is 1 and 2, and using your wrist, you go for the third one, which is hitting the shuttle.
Okay.
Then you'll be trying to aim higher, like that.
So
the
shuttle will
when your wrist and in contact of the shuttle, you want it to be at this point here.
Right.
Yeah. So when you want to do a drop shot, you are actually literally trying to bring the shuttle down. So you use the wrist technique to actually bring down the shuttle and aim it close to the net on the opponent's side. Right. You want to make your opponent to run and try to get a shuttle. Okay. Then the last one will be trying to do a smash. So it's actually like a drop shot, also bringing the shuttle down, but at a much faster pace.
So it's like you want to
harder, yes. So you can smash to bring the shuttle down and make the opponent difficult to catch your shuttle.
Okay.
And then if your opponent is smashing you, I think when you come to the 2 middle points, we'll be trying to defend. So you try to either block it to the net, or actually you can do a drive, which is using your wrist and trying to drive when the opponent is smashing you, and then counter attack. Yeah.
Okay.
Then if you're at the front, 2 points at the net, you are basically either netting, means gently hitting the shuttle over the net, or lifting all the way to the back of the opponent's court.
So when you're lifting, you're using your arms?
Mostly also using your wrist. When badminton is a lot on the wrist technique. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think you have talked about smash, drop shot, lock.
Yeah. So a smash actually the shuttle the speed of the shuttle can go up to like almost 250 km per hour. So it can be really fast, and if it hits you, it can really hurt.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Like those paintball. Yeah,
paintball. Yes. It can hurt that much. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Come to talk about this description of the techniques. Maybe let's look at some of the real actions of you.
Sure. I just happened to take this video recently while I was playing my friends.
Let's enjoy. Which one are you?
Number 7.
Oh. Wow.
So this is a doubles game. I was playing with my old Hwa Chong friends. There's a lift. And then this is a smash.
Wow.
And then opponent leaves, and I do a drop. And then there's a lob all the way to back to the opponent, and then a drop from the opponent. So, in a game, there's a lot of variety, very fast game, very fast moving. You gotta be quick in your reactions.
Yes, you have to react fast and
Yes.
then determine which technique is the best
Correct.
at that moment.
Yeah. So one thing I recommend, even when you're picking up badminton, right, very important thing is your footwork. Because the footwork means that, how fast it takes for you to reach the shuttle if you are standing at the back of the court and all the way to the front, right? Because if you have good footwork, it only requires you to take 3 steps.
Right.
But if you are, just starting out and you aren't familiar with the good footwork, you actually take like 5 or 6 steps all the way to the front. And by the time you reach the shutter is like close to at the bottom, right? So then you have less advantage of taking a good shot.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But just like you have to have a good judgment.
Yes.
Which
So of course all
direction.
this requires a lot of time of training, practice, and maybe coaching as well. So that's where a coach can come by to share with you and teach you about what are the proper techniques and how you can do your footwork and reach out with your foot and stretch so that you can reach the shutters faster.
I see.
Yeah.
And also can see there are going to be a lot of strategies. So can you share some of your secret strategies, how you, in your competitions?
Yeah, sure. I think, competitions, aside from physical physical challenge, right? There's also a lot of mental challenge, right? You try to outrun and out-compete your opponent. I'm a player that's more of a rally player, so I'm not a player that have a lot of strength that can kill off my opponent with one shot. But I tend to run around the court until my opponent gets tired.
I see.
And then when he's tired, then I start to smash and try to win the point.
Wow, very great. That's your strategy. Okay, I think thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge with me.
Sure,
I
no
think it's
problem.
very helpful. I hope that maybe one day we can invite you to teach badminton
Sure, yeah.
in one of our Seng Church programs.
Yes.
Yeah, for audience who are watching online, if you are interested to learn, perhaps you can register your interest in the comments. We will keep you updated if one day we have the programs, the badminton exercise organized in our church in the near future. Yeah, so thank you again for my interview. Yeah, I really
Welcome.
learned a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I think today we'll end our session now. Okay, everyone, bye-bye. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.